Howdy, this is Sam Gillespie. I write about real estate and politics for The Advocate. And today I'm joined by Elizabeth Viney, who's a candidate for District 14 at Dallas City Council. We're here in the Advocate conference room. So Elizabeth, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, we're going to get right in it.
Jump in.
So Elizabeth, since the last city council election 2 years ago, tell me what you think Dallas and the city council have done really, really, really right and really, really, really wrong.
All right. Well, let's start off with the good news. One thing that they have done right is I've seen an increased desire for community participation in some of the decision making, and listening to the community. There are ways that I would change the procedures in which they do that, but that has been a bright spot for me, seeing the community participation, and I think a lot of that has to do with the active voices in the community, especially a lot of the neighborhoods that we see here in East Dallas. And then one area where I think the city council really has stumbled is in the area of public safety, and that's why I jumped into this race. As a mom, a lawyer, and a longtime advocate for justice, I understand very deeply at a very, very visceral and personal level the importance of public safety and of neighborhoods and communities and families needing and being able to thrive in safe neighborhoods. And in 2020, we had the highest murder rate since 1998. In 2019, we had the highest murder rate since 2007. And so as you can see, we're not going in the right direction. We're not on the right path. And I'm jumping into this race to change that. That would be my priority number one.
Well, my second question is actually a little bit of a follow-up on that, Elizabeth. So, in the spring, this summer, in the heat of the social justice movement, you heard about defunding the police. You read about that a lot. That term showed up in every form of media. And then during the fall budget process, which followed that, the city police budget actually went from $501 million to $516 million. I covered that and wrote about that budget discussion. So we had actually an increase in the police budget. So where are you on that?
Yeah. So what happened was the city council decided to take $7 million out of the police overtime budget, and that was so key and so important because our police force is already woefully understaffed. We're operating at approximately 500 fewer police officers than we had about 10 years ago. When you account for the population growth since then, we're at a very, very too leanly staffed police force. Therefore, they rely on overtime, and we rely on their overtime to be able to appropriately respond to our 911 calls. And when that overtime budget is cut, it takes out the overtime that we rely on paying the police officers to be there for us, quite frankly. And as of right now, it's March, and we've already blown through the majority of that overtime budget, and we still have a large portion of the fiscal year to work through. So I believe that vote was not right for our community, and because of my background, I know that when you take monies out of, for example, the police overtime budget, it sends a signal to families in the neighborhoods that we're gonna not prioritize public safety or play politics with public safety, and it also sends a message to those seeking to perpetrate harm upon the community. So I disagree with what the city council did, and I would have done it very differently.
Right. So Elizabeth, in your mind, what is your definition of affordable housing? What does it mean to you? And is there a path to that in East Dallas?
Yeah, so for me, affordable housing is a family who's living and working in the area to be able to live in this area and to have an appropriate housing for them for their budget, and also have property taxes at an appropriate level to be able to afford that housing, such that if a family, as we see with so many families here in Old East Dallas, we've lived in very old homes for a very long time. So, and as we stay in the home, we never let the lessee our property taxes continue to rise. So I think affordable housing is having access to affordably priced homes, but also ensuring that property taxes don't then outprice families out of their homes. And I'm sorry, I believe there was a second question.
Is there a
there.
path to that?
And is there a path to it?
Yeah.
Yes, I knew there was something I wasn't answering. I think there is a path to that. I think through proper government oversight there, through with an eye to keeping property taxes or even lowering property taxes. I do think there is a path. There is a path to that.
Okay. So Elizabeth, the District 14 ferry gives you $10 million tomorrow. Where are you going to spend that in District 14?
That is a great question. I believe it would be twofold. First, I would spend it on increasing public safety in our neighborhoods. I would I just have a laundry list here. I would spend it on especially a focus on the street racing issue and tackling that. But then also I would spend it on roads and infrastructure. Someone recently told me, when driving down a road in East Dallas, it feels like you're driving in the old horse and buggy streets in New Orleans. And I think that's right. Isn't that what it feels like? And I would immediately address that situation, because it's not only an inconvenience, it's actually a high cost to many neighbors that I talk to on their vehicles. So it's certainly an issue that needs to be addressed.
Well, we could spend $10 million doing that for sure.
Right.
Elizabeth, the proposed construction on Richmond, if you're familiar with the debate around that, really highlights the competing interest around capital improvements in our infrastructure. One option on Richmond adds bike lanes on both sides, limits resident parking, and the other option has no bike lanes, but parking on both sides of Richmond. Which one do you support and why?
I think so one thing that I don't know if many people know is the bond money for Richmond Avenue has actually been available since 2017, which goes to one of my main platforms, is working on efficiencies in City Hall. This problem could have been fixed and resurfaced many years ago. And so I think that's probably problem number one, because when that's able to sit and people are seeing the disrepair of Richmond Avenue for so long, I think it heightens passions. So I think efficiency when it comes to things like that is number one. But then second, the bike lanes versus parking.
Right.
I think the residents of Richmond Avenue do need parking. Many of them live in very old homes. My husband and my first home didn't have a garage. And when a home doesn't have a garage, there's no option but to park on the street. And now I do believe there was an option to also have bike lanes while retaining the parking.
On one side.
On one side. Right. And I think that's probably the most appropriate, is to somehow figure out a way to retain the street parking for the residents of Richmond.
On both sides?
For the residents on Richmond Avenue, especially considering the type of homes that they live in. And like I said, I lived in a home very similar. Yeah. While also having a form of access for bike lanes. And I believe one bike lane with the additional access on Belmont Avenue for bike lanes would be appropriate, but I would certainly want to continue to hear more community input on that front. Yep. And I think that's a great challenge and great opportunity for any city council person.
Well, as I said in the question, I mean, it highlights the competing interest, because the survey results have just been released, and it's close. I mean, 60% voted for the 2 bike lanes and only 1 side parking, and 40% were for retaining both sides of parking and not having a bike lane. So there are good people with strong opinions on both sides. And so how as a city council person do you manage those competing interests and strong opinions that are equally split.
Right. And in that instance, I would continue to want to hear community members' input and advice on that, and do what best serves the community. And excuse me. And figuring out issues like this and getting input from all types of advocates is actually something that I'm very excited to do as a city council member should I be elected. I have advocacy, coalition, critical thinking skills that I think would suit me very well to be in that position. And it's not just the skills and talents I have, but it's also the passion that I hope the listeners can hear it in my voice, that I truly do want to know what would best serve our community. And I truly do want to hear the expertise that come from our neighbors and constituents. Many of them, as in East Dallas, have been living here for so long and have seen so much and done so much good in our neighborhood that I, from the most genuine place I can, I want to hear all those voices and find the best way to navigate what best suits all constituents.
All right. Well, thanks, Elizabeth. Appreciate you joining us at The Advocate. All right, readers, listeners, viewers, Election Day is May 1.
Yeah.
Early voting starts April 19th. So you guys get out and vote. Thanks.